In a vast and shining hall, leaders from many planets gathered. They sat in high chairs made of strange metals, each one more colorful than the last. The air buzzed with chatter and laughter as they spoke about a small blue planet known as Earth. Most aliens had never been there, but they all had the same opinion: humans were weak and silly. At the center of the hall was the God King, a huge figure with bright, glowing eyes and a crown made of shimmering stones. His voice boomed like thunder as he laughed. "These humans think they can challenge us," he said, waving his arm. "They still live in caves and fight with sticks. We will show them what true power is." The crowd erupted in laughter. Some aliens rolled on the ground, clutching their bellies. They imagined how easy it would be to conquer Earth and turn its people into slaves. To them, it was a joke, just a game. But one alien, a quiet diplomat from a nearby planet, frowned. He had heard stories of humans and their bravery. "We should not underestimate them," he whispered, but no one paid attention. On Earth, Dr. Elena Grant, a brilliant scientist, watched the alien meeting through her special device. She felt a chill run down her spine as she listened to their cruel jokes. Elena knew that humans were not perfect, but they had fought hard for their survival. They had built great cities, explored their world, and made amazing discoveries. Yet here were these aliens, laughing at them like they were nothing. Elena quickly called a meeting with her colleagues. "We need to prepare for an attack," she urged. "The God King wants to conquer us. We can't let them treat us like a joke." Her friends looked worried. "But how can we fight against such powerful aliens?" one asked. "They have technology we cannot even imagine." Elena shook her head. "We must find a way. Humans are creative and resilient. We have survived many challenges before. This is just another one." As news spread about the possible invasion, fear gripped the hearts of many. Some people hid, thinking it would be safer to wait. Others joined Elena, ready to fight for their planet. They gathered in a hidden place, planning their next steps. But deep inside, Elena felt the weight of doubt. Could they really stand against such powerful foes? Meanwhile, in the alien hall, the God King continued his speech. "Tomorrow, we will send a fleet to Earth. We will show them their place in the galaxy." The crowd roared with cheers and applause, their voices echoing throughout the hall. They were eager for the hunt, excited by the idea of conquering a weak planet. Elena and her team worked day and night. They studied alien technology, hoping to find a weakness. But as the day of the invasion approached, hope began to fade. How could they fight against enemies that laughed at them? On the eve of the attack, Elena sat in silence, staring at the stars through her window. She felt small and helpless. But as she gazed up, she remembered stories of great heroes from human history, those who stood up against impossible odds. Suddenly, she had an idea. "What if we use our creativity against them?" she thought. "We may not have their weapons, but we have our minds." Elena called her team together once more. "We can't fight them with strength, but we can outsmart them. We will use our knowledge and the element of surprise. Let them laugh now. Tomorrow we will show them the true spirit of humanity." Her words lit a fire in her friends' hearts. They began to work on a plan that would surprise the God King and his army. They might be small, but they were not weak. As the sun set, the humans prepared for the battle of their lives. While the aliens celebrated, the humans were readying themselves to prove that they were more than a punchline in a cosmic joke. Tomorrow would be the day everything changed. The next day, the sky above Earth darkened as the God King's fleet descended. Massive ships, shaped like giant crescent moons, filled the sky. They glowed with bright colors, casting eerie shadows on the ground below. People on Earth looked up in fear and disbelief. The time for laughter was over. In a major city, chaos erupted as the first alien ship landed. The ground shook with a loud thud and windows shattered. The God King stepped out, towering over the humans. His skin shimmered with a golden hue, and his eyes sparkled with malice. Around him, his elite warriors, clad in dark armor, followed. They moved with precision, ready to claim their prize. Dr. Elena Grant watched from her hidden base, her heart pounding. She knew the aliens would not treat humans kindly. She gathered her team, urging them to stay calm. "This is our moment," she said. "We need to show them what we are made of." The God King raised his arms, demanding silence. "People of Earth!" His voice boomed, echoing through the city. "You are now under the rule of the mighty God King. Surrender, and you will be spared. Resist, and you will face destruction." Fear gripped the hearts of many, but some people were brave. A group of protesters shouted back, refusing to accept the aliens' rule. "We are not afraid of you," they yelled. "We will fight for our freedom." The God King frowned, his expression darkening. "Foolish mortals," he sneered. "You think you can resist me? I will crush your spirits and your bodies." With a wave of his hand, the God King commanded his warriors to attack. They unleashed powerful energy beams that swept across the city, causing destruction. Buildings crumbled and people screamed in panic. The sight was horrifying, but it only fueled the fire in Dr. Grant's heart. "Now!" she shouted, signaling her team. They had been preparing for this moment. Armed with makeshift weapons and their wits, the resistance moved through the streets. They had learned about the aliens' technology and knew their strengths and weaknesses. Elena and her group set traps around the city. They hid explosives in places where the aliens would least expect them. They also created distractions, using fireworks and loud noises to confuse the enemy. It was risky, but they had to do something. Meanwhile, the God King's forces began to capture humans. They rounded people up, treating them like toys. Each capture made the aliens laugh louder, believing they would soon dominate Earth. But the God King underestimated the human spirit. As night fell, the streets lit up with chaos and fear. The resistance prepared for their counterattack. Elena felt a mix of fear and excitement. "We will show them our strength," she said. "We are more than they think." The team hid in the shadows, waiting for the right moment. The God King's forces were too busy celebrating their supposed victory. They didn't notice the humans lurking nearby, ready to fight back. Suddenly, Elena shouted, "Now!" The resistance sprang into action. They set off fireworks to distract the aliens, lighting up the night sky. As the aliens looked up, confused, the resistance launched their attack. Explosives went off, shaking the ground. The God King's warriors fell back in surprise. The humans fought fiercely, using their knowledge of the city to their advantage. They moved quickly and quietly, striking the aliens where it hurt most. The God King watched in disbelief as his warriors struggled against these small, fragile beings. "This cannot be," he shouted, anger boiling in his voice. "They are mere humans." But the humans were fighting for their home, their families, and their freedom. Each explosion and each shout of defiance fueled their determination. Dr. Grant felt a surge of hope as she saw her fellow humans stand strong. "Keep pushing forward," she yelled. "We will not back down." The battle raged on, and the God King realized too late that he had underestimated Earth. The humans were not the weaklings he had thought. They were fierce, brave, and united. The tide of the battle had begun to turn. The God King could feel the shift in power, and for the first time he started to worry. As the night wore on, Elena knew this was just the beginning. They had shown the God King that humans could fight back, but the real battle was still ahead. Tomorrow would be crucial, and they would need every ounce of strength they had. As dawn broke over the battered city, Elena and her team regrouped in their hidden base. They were tired, but their spirits were high after last night's unexpected victory. They had shown the God King that humans could fight, but Elena knew the real challenge was just beginning. While the city smoldered and the sounds of distant battles echoed, Elena gathered her team in a dimly lit room. Maps covered the walls, and they had drawn arrows indicating where the God King's forces were located. "We need to understand our enemy better," she said. "We must find a way to turn this fight in our favor." One of her colleagues, a young scientist named Ravi, raised his hand. "What if the God King has a weakness? Something we can use to our advantage?" he suggested, his eyes sparkling with ideas. Elena nodded, intrigued. "You might be right. They rely on advanced technology and powerful weapons. But we need to find out more about them." Ravi leaned closer to the map. "I've been thinking about their energy beams. They are strong, but they can only work if they are close enough to their targets. If we can draw them out and hit them from a distance, we might have a chance." Elena smiled. "Great idea, Ravi. We need to gather more intelligence on their technology. Perhaps we can capture one of their ships or find a way to analyze their weapons." The team got to work, each member focused on their task. They knew that understanding the aliens' strengths and weaknesses was vital to their survival. As they searched for information, they stumbled upon something unexpected, stories of a hidden immunity that humans possessed. Ravi found ancient texts in an old library that spoke of humans and their ability to adapt. It says here that humans can develop immunity to various dangers, whether it's diseases or environmental threats, he explained, his voice rising with excitement. Maybe this immunity extends to their technology as well. Elena's eyes widened. You mean to say that humans can resist the God King's attacks? That would explain why we survived last night. We can use this knowledge to our advantage. With this new information, the team began to develop a plan. They would use their hidden immunity to withstand the aliens' attacks while launching a counter-offensive. They knew they had to keep fighting, but this time with a new purpose. As they prepared for the next phase of their battle, the God King's forces continued to regroup and strategize. They were furious at the humans' defiance and were eager for revenge. The God King, however, was starting to feel the pressure. His warriors were not as invincible as he had believed. The God King gathered his generals in a grand chamber where holographic images of Earth floated in the air. These humans are more resilient than I expected, he said, his voice deep with anger. We must crush their spirit before it spreads further. One general spoke up, but my lord, they seem to have some strange immunity. They survived our attacks and even fought back. Immunity? The God King echoed, his brow furrowing. What do you mean? The general continued. It is rumored that humans can adapt to challenges they face. We need to analyze their resilience if we are to succeed. Then send out scouts, the God King ordered, slamming his fist on the table. Find out what makes them immune. I want to know their weaknesses. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Elena and her team had successfully gathered intelligence on the alien technology. They discovered that the energy beams used by the God King's forces required time to recharge after each shot. If we can time our attacks right, we can strike when they are weak, Elena said, pointing at the data they had collected. Ravi added, we can set up decoys to draw their fire. When they use their energy beams, they'll have to recharge, leaving them vulnerable. With their plan in motion, the humans felt a renewed sense of hope. They would use their hidden immunity, their intelligence, and their creativity to fight back against the God King's overwhelming forces. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the resistance prepared for the next encounter. The battle was far from over, but they now had a fighting chance. They were no longer just a punchline in the God King's jokes. They were a force to be reckoned with. Tomorrow, they would show the galaxy what humans could truly do. The sun rose over the city, casting a golden light on the ruins left behind from the battle. Elena and her team were ready. They had spent the night preparing for this moment. The resistance had a new plan, and they were filled with hope. Today would be different. Elena gathered everyone in the main room. Listen up! We have learned from our previous battles. Today we will hit the aliens hard when they are most vulnerable, she said, her voice steady and confident. We will use decoys to draw their fire, making them expose themselves. We have the strength and the knowledge we need to fight back. The team nodded, excitement building in the air. They had studied the enemy, and they knew the God King's warriors were feeling overconfident after their early victories. But they were about to find out just how strong humans could be. As the day wore on, the God King's forces moved through the city, looking for any signs of resistance. They were ready to crush the humans and restore their pride. But little did they know that the humans had prepared a trap. Elena and her team set up several decoys, disguised to look like humans. They placed them in strategic locations, waiting for the right moment. Meanwhile, they hid nearby, their hearts racing with anticipation. The resistance sprang into action, launching their surprise attack. They fired their makeshift weapons, hitting the aliens with everything they had. The God King's soldiers were caught off guard. They had not expected the humans to fight back with such ferocity. The battle erupted into chaos. Explosions rang out, and the sounds of weapons clashed with alien cries. Elena fought bravely alongside her team, feeling the adrenaline rush through her veins. They had taken the God King's warriors by surprise, and they were not going to let this chance slip away. But the God King was not a fool. He quickly realized his forces were losing control. Regroup, he ordered, his voice booming over the chaos. We cannot allow these humans to defeat us. As his warriors began to gather, they struggled to regain their composure. The humans were relentless. Elena and her team pressed on, pushing the aliens back and causing them to falter. They felt the tide of the battle turning in their favor. Ravi spotted the God King among his soldiers, directing them with furious determination. We need to take him out, he shouted to Elena. If we can defeat him, his forces may fall apart. Elena nodded, knowing it was a dangerous move. Let's go, she cried. The two of them charged forward, weaving through the chaos of battle. The God King's warriors tried to stop them, but the humans fought with a new fire. They felt invincible. As they reached the God King, he turned, his eyes filled with rage. "You dare challenge me?" he roared, his energy beams crackling in his hands. "Today we prove we are not your playthings," Elena shouted, firing her weapon. The beam struck the God King, but he quickly recovered, unleashing a wave of energy that knocked Elena and Ravi back. They fell to the ground, momentarily stunned. But they weren't done yet. Elena scrambled to her feet, determined not to give up. She noticed something strange about the God King's energy source. It seemed to flicker when he used it. "Ravi!" she yelled, her mind racing. "We need to drain his energy. He has to recharge." Ravi nodded, catching her idea. They quickly devised a plan. While Elena distracted the God King, Ravi would set a trap using the explosives they had prepared. With renewed strength, Elena charged at the God King, firing her weapon and dodging his blasts. The God King was furious, his eyes blazing with anger. But he was also becoming tired, his energy levels decreasing. As the God King focused on Elena, Ravi crept behind him, setting the explosives in place. "Just a little more!" Ravi whispered, his heart racing. "Now!" Elena shouted, pulling the God King's attention back to her. With a sudden explosion, the trap activated, sending a shockwave through the area. The God King staggered back, and Elena seized the opportunity. They had done it! They had turned the tide! As the dust settled, the God King found himself weakened and vulnerable. For the first time, he realized that these humans were not just primitive beings. They had the will to fight and the brains to outsmart him. Elena looked at her team, who were standing strong despite the chaos around them. "We can do this! We are stronger than they think!" The turning point had come, and the battle was far from over. The resistance was ready to fight back, and the God King was starting to realize that Earth was not so easy to conquer after all. The air was thick with smoke and tension as the battle raged on. Elena and her team had turned the tide, but they knew the fight was not over. The God King was still standing, filled with rage and determination. The humans had proven they were a force to be reckoned with, but they needed to finish what they started. As the dust settled from the earlier explosion, Elena gathered her team around her. "We have to keep pushing. We've shown them we are not afraid. Now let's show them we can win," she shouted, her voice echoing through the chaos. Ravi, still recovering from the blast, nodded. "We need to focus on the God King. If we take him down, his forces will crumble." With a plan in mind, they pressed forward. The remaining God King soldiers were beginning to panic. They had seen their leader weakened, and fear spread among them like wildfire. Elena and her team used this to their advantage, launching a series of coordinated attacks. The God King, realizing his warriors were faltering, roared in anger. "You cannot defeat me! I am the ruler of the galaxy!" His energy beams crackled with power, but Elena noticed they were dimming. "Ravi! Now is our chance!" Elena yelled. They charged forward, dodging blasts from the God King. They worked together, Elena distracting him while Ravi prepared another trap. As the God King aimed at Elena, she took a risk. She jumped to the side, forcing him to fire at a nearby building. The structure crumbled, blocking the God King's view of her. In that moment, Ravi set the explosives around the God King's feet, ready to spring the trap. The God King turned furious. "You think you can hide from me?" He launched a powerful beam towards the rubble, but Elena was already moving. "Get ready!" she called out to Ravi. With a swift movement, Ravi triggered the explosives. A loud boom echoed through the battlefield, and the ground shook. The explosion created a massive cloud of smoke, obscuring the God King's vision. Elena seized the moment. "Now, while he's distracted," she shouted. Together, they launched their final attack. The energy beams and makeshift weapons lit up the smoke-filled air. The God King staggered back, trying to regain his footing. "You dare!" he yelled, but his voice was shaky now. With their combined efforts, the humans unleashed everything they had left. Explosions surrounded the God King, pushing him closer to defeat. The tide of the battle had completely shifted. The God King's confidence shattered, and desperation set in. "Retreat! Fall back!" he ordered, but it was too late. His soldiers were already fleeing, fear gripping their hearts. They had seen their leader weakened and knew they were no match for the determined humans. As the aliens scattered, Elena and her team pressed on. The humans were no longer the joke of the galaxy. They were fighters, proving their worth in every moment. With each victory, their spirits soared. Finally, they surrounded the God King, who was now backed into a corner. "This is your end," Elena declared, standing tall with her team beside her. The God King glared, but there was a flicker of fear in his eyes. "You think you can defeat a God King?" he hissed, desperation creeping into his voice. Elena replied firmly, "We are not afraid of you or your powers. We have something you will never understand: courage and unity." With one final push, Elena and Ravi unleashed their last attack. The energy struck the God King directly, and he fell to the ground with a mighty crash. His power diminished. He realized that his reign of terror had come to an end. The humans erupted in cheers as they watched the God King fall. They had done the impossible. They had defeated an enemy that had seemed unbeatable. Their triumph echoed through the ruins of the city, a beacon of hope for all of humanity. Elena looked at her team, who were smiling and hugging each other in celebration. "We did it!" she exclaimed, tears of joy filling her eyes. They had fought for their survival and had proven that humans were far more than what the galaxy had assumed. As the sun began to set, painting the sky with brilliant colors, the humans knew their story was just beginning. They had stood up against a mighty foe and emerged victorious. They had shown the universe that Earth was not to be underestimated. With their heads held high, they looked toward the horizon. They would rebuild their world, stronger than before. The laughter of the galaxy would turn to respect, for humanity had triumphed.